All right. Well, welcome to the April Civic Engagement webinar. I'm Jessica Dorsey with the Kansas Volunteer Commission, and we're really excited to welcome you all here today. I know that you probably have enjoyed hearing the sound of my voice for the last two webinars, but today we have an opportunity to hear from actual experts in the field. USD 252 Southern Lyon County is the only Gold Star recipient for civic engagement in the state of Kansas. Every single one of their schools has earned the Civic Advocacy Network Award, which is based on these six principles that we've been talking about over the past couple of months, the 6 proven practices for effective civic learning. And so I'm really excited to welcome Shane Clark, principal at USD 252, to our discussion today to share what it is that they are doing within their district that is innovative and even sometimes original, and what we could do to share that best practice across the state. So with that, Mr. Clark, I will turn it over to you, and I have your slides embedded in here.
Okay.
Just let me know each time you're ready to move forward.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, thank you for having me, and just want to share a few things from our district. One thing that I will share right off the bat is we've got a wonderful supportive community, supportive parents, supportive Board of Education when it comes to working through civic engagement and some of the things that we do. One thing I would say is probably before we were aware of any kind of recognition that goes along with this, we had a lot of things in place, but this really helped us to focus our efforts so that maybe we're a little bit better about being consistent and having maybe a little bit more of a purpose and a scope and sequence to kind of what we're doing. And so that's really kind of where we're at. So basically the way that I have this set up to present to you today is basically by the practices. I thought that would probably be the best way to do that and kind of tell you a little bit about how we go about making sure those things happen. So taking a look at practice 1, providing that instruction in those areas. We do have what I would call a fairly significant, robust platform that we use to verify alignment and standard coverage. And so I think that's a big piece of just validating that you have a viable curriculum. And we do that through Embark, which used to be Build Your Own Curriculum, if you're familiar with that. It allows us to pull out reports to make sure that areas are being covered and that we're doing our best to make sure that we're doing the things that are required of us. Some of the other things that we've done, and I'm going to talk more from a district standpoint because it kind of filters into all of our buildings. But some of the other things that we do as well is we have dedicated 30 minutes every day in our elementary school to social studies. And that is a requirement. And we use the Curriculum Source Studies Weekly. We found that to be probably the most engaging for our kids, timely. Also, I'm just gonna be honest, very simple for our teachers. There's not a lot of planning that has to be done on their part in order to work through the information that's there. In our high school and junior high, one of the things that we did, we're kind of on a weird schedule here. We have a modified block. So basically our kids actually have 7 blocks every day. But they take their core classes every day. And so that is a change that we had where basically we went from just an every other day type of thing to every day. And we've seen a dramatic change since we've done that. The other thing that we've done is we've incorporated a civic engagement class. And in that class, they do a variety of activities, but most of the time it's organizing and planning service type of events, whether that be blood drives. We usually host 5 to 6 blood drives a year, and those are completely student-led. Our sponsor basically just is there to supervise. Our sponsor or our kids take the lead on everything, contacting Red Cross, making sure the appointments are set up, all of that good stuff as part of that. We also participate in CNN 10 for that current events piece to make sure that our kids are getting what they need there as well. Probably one of the big things that goes along with this is kind of an overall encompassing thing is our district participates in the honor flight. And I'm going to tell you that's a game changer for us because it does put a pretty significant focus. Even K through 12, even though it's just our juniors and seniors primarily that participate as far as going to Washington, D.C. But we get all of our kids involved, from writing letters to veterans in our elementary school, listening to presentations from our older kids when they come back. There's just a lot of connections that happen there with that. And so what I would say for practice number one, all of our kids are exposed to all of this in one shape or form. And so that's how we've been able to do that. Going on to talk a little bit more about that 50 minutes of daily schedule is basically we're getting about 3 weeks more instruction as a result of that because we've doubled up our time there, and we've seen a big difference in that. We also have a state requirement or a district requirement of a full year of government rather than just the minimum of the states of just the half. So that's another way that we've tried to bolster that particular piece of what we do. Some of the other things that I think go along with the application for those who are looking to, how do we get there, is providing some data. And so part of what we also included was, where our kids are academically in this particular area. And so we would provide percentages of students who have earned an A, percentage who's earned a B, C, D, and then how many of our kids are graduating, because obviously they're going to have that credit in order to do that. So providing that information, I think, is also helps to bolster an application. Because you're showing, what kind of an impact is that having on students' ability to be civically engaged in the content. So anybody have any questions over practice one? If not, we can move to practice two. Okay. Okay, so this has to do with your local and more of your current events and the types of things that the kids are going to be, more interested in. And so part of what we do, we also do provide scholastic news to our kids. Again, fairly timely, relevant information to them. Again, it's just another way of providing some real world types of things for them. We also, we make multiple field trips to memorials, and that is at all grade levels. We're very fortunate because of our location. We are just outside of Emporia, and so just within our area, there are probably anywhere from 6 to 10 memorials within less than an hour of us. And so we have found that has been a very positive thing for us to do. Also, when we were filling out this application, we were actually putting together a memorial here in Olpe. And actually one of our students actually designed the layout as part of that as well. So again, just ways that we're getting our kids involved there. And with that, every year on Memorial Day, our band comes out and plays. It's, it's not a school activity necessarily because we're out of school at that point. But we have alumni that come back 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, just because it has such an impact on our kids there with that. The other area that we participate in, I think, and it's open to everybody, is the Kids Vote. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with that resource, but we do that, and we do that every year, regardless of what election is occurring. If it's a national election, obviously there's always a little bit more attention, but we even do local elections, including at the board level. So we get our kids involved in that. And part of that is prior to the election, up to a month or so before, we provide lessons to our kids about the voting process, anything else that has to do with elections during that time. And again, we do that all grades K through 12. And then part of that is they do lessons with the kids. And then following the election, there's kind of some follow-up activities that we do based on the winners. And we kind of talk through that a little bit. And part of that one of the neat parts of that is that typically our juniors and seniors basically run the event. Kids come down and they vote on the iPad, just like they would at an election center. And they have little booths, and those folks, our kids just help with the younger kids as they go through and they vote. So again, a pretty cool thing that I think that we participate in order to make that happen. I did mention CNN 10, and obviously that's just a great timely resource for our kids. And, we believe that's kind of a big deal. I do know that when we were going through the application process, this was around the time of COVID. So there were a lot of engaging conversations about just a lot of different civic issues that are out there, from vaccines to, a lot of protests that were happening around the country with police brutality. Obviously, we had the presidential election. So there were a lot of opportunities for our kids to be a part of that. So again, I think it's one way we were able to keep things fresh and new in what's going on around them, both locally within our state and then our national government. So, all right. So practice number 3.
Shane, can I ask a question on number 2?
Absolutely.
When you're having local elections that are taking place, are you inviting those candidates to speak to your students?
We have, what I would tell you, that's kind of a hit and miss. Sometimes we get a few folks and sometimes we don't. One of the things I think has been very beneficial for us is Senator Longbine is very, I'm gonna call him pro-education, because I think he does a lot for us in our community as far as trying to support where we're at. And he's come out a few times to visit with our kids as well. But it's a little bit harder to get some of our, what I'm going to say, our more local, like for our school board, they're not as excited about coming in and doing that. But we do make the attempt. But great question. Anything else on number 2? Okay, we'll go to number 3 then. So some of the programs that we've put together that's linked to our curriculum. One of the things that we developed, and it's an ever working type of thing every year, but our district participates in something called responsibly centered discipline. And there is a lot of ties to being civic minded with a service attitude that's part of that. And even though it does have a discipline component to it, where kids own their behaviors for choices they make and that type of thing, there's also pieces that have to do with being service minded and doing things for other people without expecting something in return. And so that's something that is really part of our core. We have at both of our campuses, we have expectations. We have the Jaguar expectations for the Jaguars. We have the Eagle expectations for the Eagles. They're basically the same, maybe worded a little bit differently, but it all falls within this umbrella of responsibly centered discipline model. If you're not familiar with the model, it doesn't surprise me. It actually originated in Kansas. but there aren't a lot of schools in Kansas who use it. There's a lot more that, like on the coast, I know they use it. Some of the really big schools, I know like Las Vegas public schools use it. But it is, there aren't a lot of programs out there that can be a one size fits all, but it really can because it's very adaptable. So if anybody's interested in that, that's actually by, it was started by Larry Thompson. And Larry is a former administrator at Heston High School. And now he basically is running the Responsibility Centered Discipline program, and he promotes that throughout the United States. And it's something that we found has worked pretty good for us. Some other things that we do with that, we do quite a few supply and food drives for our community. Again, both locally here within our district and then also in Emporia. There's a high need in our county for those kinds of services. So, and again, we do that. We open that up to all grade levels. We have competitions to help promote some of that. But we do that at our local food bank here within Southern Line County. And then we also partner with some folks in Emporia to make sure that we're providing the services that they need in order to sustain. And our communities have been very supportive of helping out with that. And our kids go out and they collect food items, supply items. We even have kids that donate their own money to the project, which is, that's a great feeling when kids understand the importance of being able to give. And if we can start doing that now at this level, when they become adults, it's going to become just that natural feeling of responsibility to help out with that. The other thing that we do is we do visit the retirement community several times a year. We do that as a way to connect with folks that maybe don't have the opportunity to be as engaged socially because of their living circumstances. And again, we do that both locally and with Emporia, just up the road from us, with our senior center here in our communities, and then also any of the retirement communities in Emporia, whether that be through letters. Sometimes we go Christmas caroling over, prior to the winter break. So those are just a few things that we do with that. Some other areas that aren't mentioned here on the slide is we do have the Unbound Gravel here in Emporia. And so we have students who volunteer for that every year. We probably average 25 to 30 students who volunteer their time. And that usually comes to about 250 hours of community service just for that one event. But we do a lot of events. Like, again, I mentioned blood drives, again, completely student led. We have the highway cleanup. We have groups that do that. We also have dedicated community, what I'm going to call community cleanup days. We have one in the fall and one in the spring within our own communities, again, just to give back to our communities for the way that they support us. And also we know that there's a need for that. So again, providing any kind of data there, we do try to, we did report like what our membership is in different organizations. One of the organizations that we started up was called the Key Club. And that's part of the Kiwanis. It's a kind of a offshoot of that. And 75% of our high school are members within that. So that's a pretty high number that goes out. And just this last, probably this last month, they had their annual pancake feed, and our kids go up and they volunteer their time. And again, so every single Key Club member was in attendance of that. So again, I think just a great way to get out there and do what we can. There's also a elementary program that we are exploring with this. also through Kiwanis. And so again, just finding ways to connect our kids into the community is something that we continue to strive for. I want to make sure I got, don't miss anything here. Again, let's see. I mentioned Key Club. Yeah, they had their 73rd annual Pancake Day. And then so throughout our year, and we can show this through our individual plans of study, we log thousands and thousands of hours volunteer service from our kids. And we believe that's a big part of being civically engaged is giving back to your community. So
a couple of questions, Shane. Lenore had asked if all of these things are being done during school or after school.
It's a combination. What I would tell you is I'm going to say most of the, like if we're taking a look at the Key Club stuff, those are outside of school hours. There's a lot of honor flight program stuff that happens outside of school hours. However, I will tell you, like our blood drives, we hold those during the school day. We host those in our building. And so, but again, those kids run those events and make sure that they're successful. I'm trying to think, like our food drive, it kind of depends on that. I mean, a lot of that is taken care of during school, but we do take some out of school time to go up, sometimes after school hours to deliver products. And again, it's not all of our kids, but it's you know, because obviously we can't take them all. But we do, those kids that are highly involved in whatever organization they're part of, obviously they're the leaders of those. And so they really drive that piece of it. I will tell you Honor Flight, that probably has the most outside volunteer hours that we have, from fundraisers in the evening, during the summer, all of that. And our students are required to, in order to participate in the Honor Flight, that is one of the requirements is your community service and your hours. And they also have to raise funds individually to also attend a minimum of $100. Other questions?
I had also wondered if any of your teachers were using a more formal service learning model where the students are, through the curriculum, having an opportunity to select a volunteer opportunity, connecting it to the curriculum, and then reflecting on their service and their learning.
We do that at the junior and senior level during the civic engagement class that we have. And that is part of, I guess, what I would say is they have, and I'd have to go back and look, but there's so many service projects that they're required to do. And what I will tell you is, you know, that's not a required class, but I'm going to tell you probably 90% of our kids take that class. They enjoy it. They enjoy the opportunity to kind of create their own mission and what they're going to be doing. Just to give an example, we had a few kids that just partnered with our school nursing staff, and we had a large vaping presentation for our kids and brought in Emporia State nursing students. I mean, they did all the coordinating to make sure all that happened. So again, then that would have been one of their projects that they do. I do know next year it will be a requirement for all of our seniors, not necessarily board or policy driven, but just because that's the way we're going to create our schedule next year, is that they will all be required to be in some kind of a service class or the opportunity to be a part of the service community. And again, we're trying to tie that back to our individual plans of study. And again, so it's not to reinvent the wheel on everything, but there's a lot of overlap in a lot of what we do through civic engagement and the rest of the star recognition awards that are out there.
Great, thank you for that.
Yep. Okay, are we ready for 4? Okay. This is where, and again, there might be a little bit of overlap here. I do want, this is probably where I would say this would be where Honor Flight really fits in, because it is extracurricular in a lot of ways. It is supported by our district, but it is not a district funded program, anything like that. It is totally run by volunteers. So there's no paid positions, anything like that. So even at the leadership level, there is that modeling of service without getting pay in return. So that's part of it. And we have stayed pretty adamant that stays that way for that reason. So if you're not familiar with the Honor Flight, we take veterans to Washington, D.C. To visit the monuments there that are dedicated to their service and the sacrifices that they've made. There are about 125 Honor Flight hubs in the country. Basically, we pair up a student guardian with a veteran in order to go. We actually have a plan. We have a trip planned for next Monday and Tuesday. So our kids will be going out. We have, I believe it's 28 kids that will be going on this particular Honor Flight. And so along with 28 vets. So typically we have them paired up and try to do that, visit as many as the memorials as we can within a 48-hour period. So it's a quick turnaround and it's a go, but it is an awesome opportunity for our kids. What I would tell you is we do this twice a year. It costs approximately $70,000 to go each year, which includes basically everything that you could possibly do, air flight, all of that kind of stuff, food, lodging, all of that's part of that. And again, our kids raise that money, okay, whether that be through individual fundraisers. We do golf scrambles. We do barbecue feeds. I mean, there are just a lot of different ways that we connect. And then obviously when we connect with other organizations, a lot of times we get donations based on that, VFWs, some things like that. So that's kind of a cool thing. One of the cool stats that I guess that we put in with our application is that more than 75% of our graduates attend the Honor Flight. So it's an awesome opportunity for our kids, but probably more so for our veterans. And one of the things that you'll see at the very end, and I can send out, or you'll have access to the links, but we put a link to our Honor Flight page, and there are tons of testimonials on there. Again, just to reiterate, the value of what we're doing there. So that is probably the big chunk that is part of what I would say this section. But again, there are some other ones too that I don't want to leave out. We do participate in the food to table, where the semis come out and we unload food and we distribute it to the community. And again, that is all volunteer driven, and we have kids that participate in that. We're a large 4-H community. So a lot of what we do in 4-H is civic engagement, service related. We have something called Down Home Days here in our communities, both Hartford and Olpe, in which basically drawing people from different communities in and just welcome them to our community, and then provide services on those days as well. I mentioned the Key Club and the Builders Club would be the elementary version of that. Then one of the ones that I think maybe gets overlooked sometimes, but we've got a very, very active program with our SAFE program, which is Seatbelts Are for Everyone. And through that program, we do a lot of community service that is related to that, about promoting seatbelt use and also just basic safety when it comes to driving. So that's a big part, and they do a lot as a part of that. One of the things that I would say on that, I'm just going to pull up something here just real quick because I don't want to miss out on this. But we have kickoff activities where, we ask for pledges that kids will wear their seatbelts, all that kind of stuff. But in addition to that, we just provide a lot of interactive types of things where we even have law enforcement come out. We've had the seatbelt machine come out where you can see, if you're in a wreck, this is what it feels like. If you're going 15 miles an hour and you rear end someone, this is what it's going to feel like. If you're going 30, this is what it's going to feel like. So some kind of neat things there with that. We also get our elementary kids involved in our SAFE program because a lot of them are riders of their siblings and making sure that they're doing the things that we're asking them to do too. So they've conducted social media campaigns, and through that, we've, again, some more data. About 75% of our parents are connected to that page, and we have more than 1,300 followers. So again, just targeting messages to our kids about that. One of the other things that we do that's maybe a little bit unique, and it's tied to this extracurricular, but it is something that we do during the school day. We do have a 25-minute period at the very beginning of our school day. And I'm just going to be honest with you, it's kind of a catch-all, but it provides us an opportunity to provide what I'm just going to call some instruction in areas that are really just more about doing the right thing, volunteer work, civic engagement, participating in some of our activities. So it really exposes all of our kids, even if they're not directly involved in that. So that's kind of a cool thing. We have over the last, I'm going to jump back a little bit to Honor Flight. We've taken over 200 veterans since we started the program. And it's just a really cool opportunity for us to give back to those who have served for us. So any questions there? Okay, going to practice 5. What we do here is I will tell you, I have a phenomenal, and this is what I'm going to tell you, and we're small, but we have phenomenal social studies teachers in our district. And so they are really connected and engaged in this. And that is really helpful when you look at leadership in making things happen. And so on this particular slide, you can see there's a lot of different ways that our kids get involved in school government. Our elementary school, they participate in school government. They develop a service project every quarter. And then the entire student body participates in that. And that can be from a local fundraiser for someone who has a medical condition that needs help. It can be something, we've collected shoes before. I mean, it's just whatever the kids, areas that they want to participate in. I know one year we sponsored, I believe we sponsored a goat in some faraway country to help them. So again, it's kind of what they want to do with it, and we let them run with it. We have a lot of our classrooms develop class constitutions. Again, I think that's important in developing that type of thing. Obviously, we have our student council elections. And then at our high school level, we do have something called Leader of the Free World, where students go through an entire campaign from beginning to end and try to see what that all looks like. As far as when we start talking about real elections, and part of that, and we also offer a variety of school organizations for our kids to be a part of, and obviously there are leadership opportunities for all of those. One thing that I would say about student council, one of the I guess differences that maybe some are that you can, I mean, we do an election process, but you can also apply for membership in our student council, because we know that sometimes the The popular kids get selected for those, and maybe some of our kids that don't get that leadership experience. So there is an application process, and we do into our student council, we allow up to 15 other members to join through that process as well. But again, it gives them the opportunity to go through a process of what that really looks like for that. So again, we do that. A lot of fun things, I think, that are part of that. Again, some of the data we used, about 85% of our student body is a member of some kind of organization or club. And so again, just how our kids are connecting there, I think, is important. A lot of overlap because we are small. We got a lot of kids doing a lot of things. So any questions on practice 5?
I had a question, and I wondered if any of your students had lobbied either a local school or a district for any sort of governance changes.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of this. We actually have a group of students who participates in the Emporia Chamber once a month. And the last, I do know that they brought something, and of course they were part of that group, so it wasn't just them individually, but they drafted proposals for legislation in regards to communities and schools. So they are a part of that. Again, not necessarily directly doing that, but they are part of that process and doing that. So that's been really cool. Some of the other things we've had the governor here in our district several times for different reasons, both for our kids and then also for some community connection types of things. And our students have been able to join and participate and listen in on those types of things. And that's kind of neat too, when you've got people who are willing to come out and do those kinds of things for your kids as well. So what else we got? Anything else? Practice 5. Okay, if we go on to practice 6, again, this is a little bit of what I'm going to call some things maybe we talked about before that. Kids Voting USA, huge. It's really good. So if you need more information there, and you can just Google it, I mean, you can get right to it. But it's a great way. Part of our efforts there are also to engage our parents in the voting process. So if they're hearing things from their kids and things that their kids are talking about at school, because we want voter turnout to be high so that we're best represented. So that's part of what we do there. We do have, again, we do some mock elections through some of our classes that we're doing. We do a yearbook cover selection. So again, anytime that we have that opportunity to involve kids in making selections, having their voice heard, I think is pretty important. That what you had just mentioned about the chamber, that is that Government Matters that's on this slide. And so that's it when we go up to the Chamber of Commerce and we do that. So again, it's a great thing. Another note on the kids voting, there is no cost to it. It's free. There aren't very many things like that out there anymore, but it is free. And so I would encourage, if that's something that you're looking for, I would definitely encourage you to look at that. So the other thing that I would say that I didn't mention about the kids voting that may be a little bit more specific, the lesson categories for those include civic engagement and service learning, democracy and people, election and voting, and the informed citizen. And so those are the areas that are covered within that. And basically what happens every year is during one of our PD days, we take about an hour for our staff to collaborate and make sure that they have those lessons ready to go. And so that they will be prepared for their kids. And then also so that we kind of have that scope and sequence, we kind of know where everybody's at each grade level and what lessons are being provided. So see if I had anything else there on that. I mentioned the roundtable discussion with Governor Kelly. We did have that opportunity. So again, with that, we did have 100% of our students that participated in the November election. So I mean, that is a cool thing. I mean, we had 100% voter turnout. I mean, where are you ever going to get that, right? But again, we explain all of that, and then one of the other things that we do is our government teacher, she does take the kids up to vote who are 18 if they so choose to go, and so they get to actually see the actual voting venue, and those who can participate, those who aren't 18 yet, just get to sit and watch. But I think it's a good opportunity for our kids. I think sometimes it's a comfort level, you know, if it can be a little bit intimidating if you've never done it before, knowing, you know, what happens, what does it look like, is it scary? And by being able to do that, I think it just opens up that opportunity that, hey, I've done this before. No big deal. I'm just going to go in and take care of it. So, let's see. I was going to also mention that the testimony that our students did provide, obviously it was towards promoting public education, and you know that those are invaluable experiences for our kids, and to do whatever it takes to support our public schools. So that was part of that legislation that I was talking about before. So
we have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Wants to know, what did you do to get Governor Kelly to the table, or anyone else that you've had?
Well, there's several things. You got to stay on them. you gotta invite them, and you got to explain to them why. A couple of things that I think happened was that I know when Governor Kelly was touring the state, she did look for possible venues, and so you just got to be willing and be willing to volunteer your space and your time. I know that's how we got her here for that. The other is, and I'm just going to be very honest with that, when you have success within your district, those people like to come out, and it helps to promote themselves as well as being part of those things. So anytime you have anything that is really positive going on in your district, get out to those elected officials, invite them to come in and celebrate with you, because that's when you can get them maybe a little bit in more of an informal setting, to have those informal conversations that probably bear more weight when it comes right down to it than some of the formal things that we see that go on, because they're getting the grassroots, you know, people in the trenches, hearing from kids. So that's a big part of it. But again, just inviting those folks into your buildings. They will come. But you have to be persistent with them. Anything else there? Okay, I think I've got one more slide just to talk about just real quick. Has to do kind of the culmination of all the practices and taking into consideration your community and your family. You know, one thing that I will tell you is I think even though we may not have access to many of the resources that maybe larger schools and communities have, one of the huge advantages of small schools and small towns is that it takes all of us to make things happen. And so I think that our folks are more engaged because of that. And they know that that's kind of the world that we live in, because we have to, in order to exist. And so we see volunteerism and service modeled throughout our community, which also helps when we're trying to do it within the school system. You know, we have tried to push the service-minded piece of doing things for other people without expecting anything in return. Mention the food to table, mention multiple families in need, how we've gone through and done that. Our honor flight participants and the different types of things that we organize for that all takes community and volunteers, even beyond the school system. in order for things to happen. And so having those partnerships and finding those people that will assist, that are passionate about those things, and those people are out there, they want to help. But sometimes we need to make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to be a part of what we're trying to do as well. So that kind of wraps up at least that part of it for community and family. So if you go to the next slide, just real quick. Okay, and again, and you can share this slideshow and all that. These particular items, obviously that first item has to do just the link to the civic engagement stuff on KSDE, which is very, very helpful when taking a look at rubrics and questions and you know, what does it need to look like? And we spend a lot of time evaluating that document to see where we were already strong and things that we were already doing well, but then where could we make some adjustments to streamline some things and maybe target some things a little bit better from a consistency and continuity standpoint. And then also gave you a couple of links to our Facebook pages, again, where you're going to see just a lot of examples of civic engagement. One is our Honor Flight page, and the other is just our OP Schools page. So there's going to be a lot more on there than just service stuff, but we put, you know, we promote that. We're proud of it, and we think it does make a difference in the kind of kids that we put out here in our school district. Probably my priority as a building administrator has always been my number one goal is to put out good people. That to me is more important than whether they're really, really good at math or really, really good at English. Yes, I want them to have those skills, don't get me wrong, but I want us to have good people. And I think through the civic engagement process, I think that we really are emphasizing the importance of that. So what questions does everybody have?
Hi, I have a question. I'm Tierney and I'm also with the Kansas Volunteer Commission. So early on, you were talking about having classroom discussions around current events. So do you happen to have any particular standards that you use in order to keep the discourse respectful and engaging? Because I know some of those topics can be a bit controversial.
Sure. You know, what I'm going to tell you is I don't know that we have anything that is consistent from one classroom to the next. I mean, like we don't have a guide or a document or anything like that. What I will tell you is part of our expectations that we've created kind of help with that. That would be the one thing that I say is the framework, because we talk a lot about respect for others' opinions, those kinds of things. So our teachers really do a really nice job of making sure that if a discussion starts going in the wrong direction, that they curtail that, and they have a discussion. I mean, not just that, hey, let's stop, but let's talk about why we need to stop. So that's a piece of that. You know, that's probably one of the things in our district. Again, we're small. I'm going to say we're a fairly conservative community. So there's not maybe quite the divisiveness that you might see in maybe other areas when people get really passionate about things. I'm not saying our kids aren't passionate about things, but those controversial topics probably hit our kids maybe a little bit differently than kids who may have more experience in some of those controversial areas. So unfortunately, our kids are pretty sheltered when it comes to some of those things. Even though we talk about them, it's still not real world to them because they just have not experienced it personally.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. And even just knowing that the discussion is being had, I think is worthwhile.
What else you got?
That might be it for our questions today, Mr. Clark.
Okay, well, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity. This is something that I'm very proud of what our district has done in regards to keeping this focus. It's been a focus since I've been here, and I've been here 14 years now, and we continue to grow in this area and the importance of it. It's one of those things that I think we've had great leaders in the right spots, but we've got great support from community and parents. And that's what really makes all the difference. So.
Great. Well, if you'll stay on with us, I have just a couple of slides to share from the Volunteer Commission, and then we will round out our call today.
Okay.
So I just wanted to remind everyone that in addition to the Civic Engagement webinar, which is always offered on the third Friday of the month, we're also offering a webinar that's exploring a variety of youth mentoring topics, as well as volunteer engagement. And so certainly the links for these in accessible, clickable links are on our website, which is canserve.org. And if you went to take action webinars, you'll be able to register for each of these webinars. The other thing that I wanted to be sure that I took the time to say today is that we currently have open and accepting applications, the Youth Civic Engagement Mini Grant. This mini grant offers up to $5,000 to an organization to support youth-led and youth-initiated service projects. It could also provide professional development around civic engagement. It could also explore some leadership development for young people. But the goal of the Civic Engagement Mini Grant is really to bring our young people to the table and give them an opportunity to have the resources that they need to move forward and take action on a particular issue that's important to them. So I think that this grant is really fantastic, and I hope that every single school in the state applies for it, although we'd probably run out of money at that point. But we do hope that there is a lot of applications for this grant. It does require matching funds, but those matching funds can be in-kind donations from the district, or it could be funds that you may have already set aside for these activities anyways. And so we can double down and amplify the impact. The other change that we made to the Civic Engagement Mini Grant that we learned in 2022 is that this grant needs to cover the entire school year. So this grant will actually kick off and start on June 1 for anyone that's looking to do summertime activities, but it will go all the way through April of 2024. So our school districts are able to apply for this grant, and even community organizations as well can apply for this grant and have a variety of activities potentially that span summertime all the way through the school year. The application has 3 boxes and 1 budget section. So when we talk about applications that come out from the State Department, it is about as light as we could possibly get. You'll tell us your activities, you'll give us a timeline, talk about the purpose, the goals, the impact, and your budget. And that's enough information for us to move forward. Additionally, if you look ahead to the mini grant series, we are also going to be releasing a social justice mini grant on May 1st, a 9/11 National Day of Service mini grant on July 3rd, a grant to support volunteer and youth mentoring development in our rural and indigenous communities is going to come out in August, and then thinking ahead for MLK National Day of Service in October. So the other great thing about our mini grant series is that you can stack grants on grants. You are not limited to applying for one of our grants. And so an organization could also think strategically about how they might really advance service through a civic engagement grant coupled with a 9/11 grant, coupled with an MLK grant, and be able to have a broader impact in that way. Of course, we always invite you to visit our website to sign up for our newsletter. It's the first place that we will release all of the information as it comes out from the Volunteer Commission. And with that, I just thank you all so much for being here today. A special thanks to Shane Clark, over in Southern Lyon County for all the information that you shared. I know that I was already thinking about a lot of ideas, so I may be following back up with you about ways that we can continue to partner together as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much for being on this call today, and we look forward to seeing you again in May.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lenore.
Thanks.